Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is a beautiful end to the day here in Hardin County, Kentucky. This is the Hillbilly Think Tank coming at you live from Tunnel Hills, and I am Spencer Keck, and I'm running for magistrate in the 3rd District here in Hardin County. Now, y'all, here in Hardin County, we know that life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that's what we're all struggling to keep afloat. Everything we do is for that. So I ask that when you vote this year, you consider me because those are my priorities. What can I do to help you live up to those 3 things in your life? Now, we know here in Hardin County that we've got one of the best counties there is in the state. And we live in a wonderful, beautiful state with lots of heritage. I was out and about today, got to meet some of my fellow constituents. And man, again, we're just a great place to live. A lot of great people here. We would like to have some things in this county that have been lacking for a bit. Like I'd like to have sidewalks here in my neighborhood where there aren't any. And even though the speed limit's 25, people go 50 miles an hour down it. So if I had a sidewalk, my kids could ride their bike on that without getting hit. My elderly neighbors could walk their dogs up and down the street without getting hit. Heck, even I could walk my 4 dogs up and down the street without getting hit. And so I would really like to see that. But for some reason, we aren't doing it. The potholes down the street, they're not filled. So I want to make sure that we have a Hardin County fiscal court that is responsive to what we need. And right now, they're looking at what can they do to raise our taxes. Most of us, we can't handle that. The last 5 years, they've been great for growing this wonderful county, but they've also seen the cost of living go up. So we don't need to add any more to that. Now, nationally, there is one place that's going to be strapping every single one of us with more taxes for the next, God only knows how many years, right? We know that Whiskey Pete Keg's Breath is asking for $200 billion more to the defense budget, which is already a $1 trillion defense budget, largest budget we've ever had for defense. They're saying that they've already blown through this $1 trillion with their excursions in Venezuela, Ecuador, the Middle East, and they're planning on doing something in Cuba. We wasted some military money over trying to convince Greenland to be ours too. What kind of boondoggle is this? With $200 billion with a B dollars, we could give a $62,000 bonus to every public school teacher in the U.S. That would increase teacher retention across the U.S., and that's really hard to do right now. That could also let teachers quit that second or third job they have so they could spend more time grading papers, making lesson plans, and conferencing with parents. But you know what? That's not our priority in this country. Our priority is with the Epstein class, and I guess the Epstein class needed the oil prices to go up significantly so that we have to pay $4 and soon $5 at the pump. Of course, when I say we, I don't mean me, since I have an electric vehicle. But I still have seen my electric bill go up from what? Well, that's what we need to know and work on, right? We shouldn't be paying for anything but renewal of our electric grid and keeping it up to date. So we want to make sure that in Glendale, what was supposed to be a employer that was going to stay here forever, Blue Oval SK by Ford, it was paying $20 an hour and more. They only were open, 2-3 months? And they sacked their employees. Now they're talking about making that a data center. That was some of the best farmland in this county, right near the river. And we're going to now make that a data center, which will poison the water, just like it does in all the other places we have data centers. Come on, y'all. We deserve better in this county. So let's look at what some other folks are saying about what we could do with $200 billion with a B dollars. We could do a whole lot more than what we're doing now. So I've got someone else I was looking at what he was saying today, came up with something that, we should really consider. So let's check this out.
This dumpster fire with the drinking problem is asking Epstein's best friend for an additional $200 billion in funding for their bullshit war in Iran. That's on top of this administration asking for a $1 trillion defense budget. So let's talk about what $200 billion could be spent on if we weren't too busy lining the pockets of defense contractor executives. Trump's planned $200 billion supplemental could buy 43.5 billion school lunches, fully funding the program for the next decade. It could fully fund the LEHEAP home heating and cooling cost assistance program for millions of Americans for half a fucking century. It could fully fund Head Start for more than 2 decades, giving millions of kids high quality early childhood education. Or we could restore Trump's cuts to national parks funding, which would fully fund the National Park Service for 40 fucking years. It could fund the starting salaries of 4.2 million new teachers. It could replace every single lead pipe in the U.S. drinking water supply with $150 billion to spare. It could extend ACA tax credits that 22 million Americans rely on for over 7 years. It could fund nursing home care for 1.7 million seniors for an entire year. It could buy school supplies for every single student this school year with $58 billion to spare. But who needs to actually take care of people when we could just kill our service members in an unjust, ridiculous fucking war in Iran instead? So this dumpster fire.
So is this what we voted for? I know I didn't vote for it. Pretty sure many folks here watching right now didn't vote for it either. But I definitely know that $200 billion is more than we spent on giving FEMA money and aid to all the victims of the flooding in North Carolina and all the victims of the California fires and all the victims of, you name all the disasters we've had in just the last few years. We haven't even spent $200 billion on them. Oh, and what happens every time now that there is a disaster? If this is a state that this administration doesn't like, then Diaper Dan says, nope, you're not getting any federal help. Oh, you've got $1 trillion of our dollars for the Defense Department, and you're telling me you need another $200 billion, and yet you won't do anything for healthcare improvement. You won't fund the Affordable Care Act. Now people are having to quadruple what they pay for healthcare as of just a few months ago. Wow, really? Is this what we asked for? Well, what could we do with that here in Hardin County? There's quite a few things. We've got road improvements that could be made. We got potholes that could be filled. We've got schools that could be reinforced. Heck, we could even build another one. Definitely could pay teachers more here. So, when is enough going to be enough? Now, sometimes it's times like this you just got to wonder what would Chuck Norris say. And yes, y'all, I know that Chuck Norris passed away yesterday. Rest in peace, Chuck Norris. We know that Mueller passed away also. Rest in peace, Mueller. Hopefully, you can fight the good fight elsewhere. You did a job here fighting crime. What would Chuck do? Chuck, boy, he sure did a lot of stuff, didn't he? Well, I understand he was a stand-up guy. Let's give him a little tribute of hilarity since he provided us with a lot of those, we know, in his day. So, Chuck Norris played Russian roulette with a fully loaded gun and won. There is no such thing as global warming. Chuck Norris was so cold, he treated the sun up. Yeah, right. Chuck Norris likes his meat so rare, he only eats unicorns. Chuck Norris couldn't act in Titanic because he would have saved everyone. So, all right. Yeah, just little funnies there. We'll all definitely, miss him. Sure, they're making more memes in heaven now with him. Well, y'all, Diaper Dan's National Economic Council Director, Kevin Hassett, said Sunday the war has already cost $12 billion. Now, that does not include, pardon me, our war with Venezuela, doesn't include our excursion in Ecuador and the other Latin American country that we've been down to. It does not include Diaper Dan's plan, along with Whiskey Pete Hegseth and Ted Crybaby Cruz. They've got their plans for Cuba next. This doesn't include that. So what do they need this $200 billion for? Are they actually planning for this to be another forever war like the ones that I was in? That's what I would really like to know. Because I know that a lot of people that I love dearly voted for this guy solely on the fact that they believed he was going to never lead us into war. We would never see any casualties. All right. Well, we also spent military money on wasting time trying to battle it out to make Greenland our 51st or 52nd, whichever they decided it was going to be state, because, we also wanted Canada to be our state. We've wasted a lot of our goodwill with other countries with these types of shenanigans, and they want more money to do that with. Is enough never enough? Well, again, as I was out and about today, also made it to the FFA chili cook-off. That was part of the FFA for Central Hardin High School. It was originally supposed to be held there, but they moved it to the middle school. I'm sure that honoring one of their alumni that we know passed recently was part of that. And on that note, I want to pay tribute to Staff Sergeant Pennington. So he is going to be cremated, and then they're going to have his burial ceremony next Friday. So my heart goes out to all of his family and friends that are so affected by this, and by all accounts. that is something that I don't want to see any other Kentucky families have to go through. I know that we're still bringing the tech sergeant home from our neighboring county and from over in Bardstown. So, as someone who been in combat, lost friends, saw my brother torn to pieces by combat, like I explained, then not even 5 years later, we lost him. Lost my dad to Agent Orange. He'd been home, thank goodness, long enough to have me and see some of his grandkids. Yeah, I just don't want to see this happen to any other Kentucky families. So I want all of our tax dollars spent on taking care of the folks who do make it home from war. Take care of those folks who use the VA for their health care. Pay our teachers that educate the future soldiers, airmen, Marines, sailors. Take care of the teachers that educate our future doctors and lawyers, our firemen, our welders. We can use our tax dollars much better in helping out working class American citizens. And that's what I'm asking for. All right, y'all. We know that apparently we're planning on doing more bombing, though. We haven't apparently obliterated Iran yet, even though we were told months ago, the first time we bombed them, that was enough. That was going to be it. We made it impossible for them to do anything with nukes. But here's what we're getting now today. We're being told if Iran doesn't fully open without threat, the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours. Oh, someone finally told them it's not Hormuz Strait. It's Strait of Hormuz. Thank you, whoever told this guy that. Within 48 hours from this exact point in time, the United States of America will hit and obliterate their various power plants, starting with the biggest one first. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Diaper Dan. All right. So, yeah, Johnny Panic. It's so embarrassing to be American these days, what Johnny Panic said. And then I double said, we don't need the strait. We don't use it. That's what Trump said yesterday. Every day it's something different. Amazing. President Obama is saying Bob Mueller was one of the finest directors in the history of the FBI, transforming the Bureau after 9/11 and saving countless lives. But it was his relentless commitment to the rule of law and his unwavering belief in our bedrock values that made him one of the most respected public servants of our time. Michelle and I send our condolences to Bob's family and everyone who knew and admired him. And we know that Bob Mueller was a Republican, a sound Republican, one with high principles and decorum. Yeah. So, he also served in uniform. Mueller did as a Marine. So we can never forget him. OAF Nation Actual saying, honoring again this U.S. Marine, Vietnam veteran, Bronze Star, and Purple Heart recipient has passed away at the age of 81. Well, Robert Mueller, according to Diaper Dan, Diaper Dan said he's glad to hear that Robert Mueller died. That's Robert Mueller, Marine Corps veteran of Vietnam, the war that Captain Bone Spurs said he could not go to due to having his bone spurs. And yet it was Mueller that got a Bronze Star and a Purple Heart. Something our president has never, ever been understanding anything about. All right. Yeah. There you go. This is Diaper Dan, man with no decorum. Robert Mueller just died. Good. I'm glad he's dead. He can no longer hurt innocent people. Diaper Dan. And here is the citation given to Second Lieutenant Robert Swan Mueller III when he got a Bronze Star. The President of the United States takes pleasure in presenting the Bronze Star Medal to Second Lieutenant Robert Swan Mueller III, United States Marine Corps Reserve, for service as set forth in the following citation: for heroic achievement in connection with operations against the enemy in the Republic of Vietnam while serving as a platoon commander with Company Hotel, 2nd Battalion, 4th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. On 11 December 1968, 2nd Lieutenant Mueller's platoon was a lead element in a company-sized combat patrol being conducted in the Mutters Ridge area of Quang Tri Province when the Marines came under a heavy volume of fire, small arms, automatic weapons, and grenade launcher fire from a North Vietnamese army company and sustained numerous casualties. Quickly establishing a defensive perimeter, 2nd Lieutenant Mueller fearlessly moved from one position to another, directing the company and sustained numerous casualties. He's directing the accurate counterfire of his men and shouting words of encouragement to them. With complete disregard for his own safety, he then skillfully supervised the evacuation of casualties from the hazardous area and, on one occasion, personally led a fire team across the fire-swept terrain to recover a mortally wounded Marine who had fallen in a position forward of the friendly lines. 2nd Lieutenant Mueller's courage, aggressive initiative, and unwavering devotion to duty at a great personal risk were instrumental in the defeat of the enemy force and were in keeping with the highest traditions in the Marine Corps and of the United States Naval Service. 2nd Lieutenant Mueller is authorized to wear the Combat V, that means valor, for the President, H.W. Busey Jr., Lieutenant General, United States Marine Corps, Commanding General, Fleet Marine Force, Pacific. Now, let me just tell you something, folks, in case you never served with the Marine Corps like I did. The Marines do not like to give out medals. They give them out sparingly. They are very stingy, very stringent on the requirements for giving them out. I know this from experience. So that right there, to me, if that had been read on an Air Force citation or an Army citation, that would have been put up for Medal of Honor. All right? Because you cannot order someone to go into enemy fire to rescue a dead person in enemy lines. It's not something you can order someone to do. He and his men did it, but he was absolutely a man of valor. And so for him to be cast aside and for someone in the position that Diaper Dan's in to say that he's glad that he's dead, man, that is just atrocious. He's the Chuck Norris that Chuck Norris played in the movies. I tell you that. And so we lost a major hero. So for anyone to disparage someone like that, yeah, they have no soul. And he fought against crime as the head of the FBI. He helped us to not have another attack like we had in September of 2001 once he took over the FBI. That's what we got. And we should really be remembering that and not allowing someone to talk so horribly about a man of such honor and commitment and courage. So I will remember him as a hero. All right, y'all. Hopefully you're having a great weekend. Hopefully I can meet you when I'm out and about and meeting my constituents or just meeting people, in the county, because I'm going to be looking for votes, of course, from folks in District 3, but I'm going to be working for this whole county. I have heritage here, and my heritage isn't just in District 3. So, y'all have a great rest of the weekend. Remember, in Kentucky, we say, united we stand, divided we fall. Here in Hardin County, we know that in order not to fall and not to be divided, we've got to love our neighbor as ourselves. And in doing that, we recognize we are our brother's keeper and our sister's keeper. So, y'all, bless your corazón. And please, please, please remember everyone deployed overseas today and every day.